Hello and welcome to OlsFarm. Today we're going to be covering whether a fig tree is actually cold hardy. So the cold hardiness is kind of irrelevant to where you're at. Uh, we have covered all our fig trees up. We were a little late this fall, so all the top growth is dead. But we're going to inspect the roots and see how far down they died. We hit 17 degrees while there's still leaf growth and sap flowing, so there's no way to cure that. We're going to uncover and check the roots on a couple, show you how to do a little mini greenhouse. We're going to test that out, see if we can get a head start. Our growing season is 155 days, and so we need all the help we can get, and this will be hopefully a thing we can do in the future. A few days ago, this had about a foot of snow on top of it, and on a third full day of spring, we've melted most of it. So they've all got a good drink of water, and hopefully we don't have too many killing frosts in our future. But right now we look freezing temperatures almost every single day at night and 50 to 70 during the day. So we'll go over some of these roots and I'll show you how they look. We'll check this row and see how many of them have survived at the root level. All right, so a few factors that we should cover for cold hardiness is what I believe is going to be the key in a zone 4B to get your fig to survive winter. The first one, an early mulching. If we start mulching a couple weeks before the first frost, that will save all of the top growth at the mulch level and below. And then once that mulch is there, it protects anything below that. When the sap starts to fall down into the roots or there's less in the top, then it can handle a lot colder temperatures. The second factor we're going to want for a cold hardy fig is we may have got the roots to survive, but the next thing is, will it fruit in one season? So an earlier wake up, some trees will wake up earlier than others, and sometimes it's more about the variety or possibly how fast those roots warm up. With our mulch layer, there is still ice a foot down in the soil, so those roots are not going to wake up until we get a warm soil. So pulling the mulch away could help the roots warm up quicker, and therefore we have an earlier wake up, and when they wake up earlier, they will fruit earlier. The next factor would be obviously varieties. Some varieties can handle it. Some varieties fruit earlier than others. Varieties like Celeste for us will not put on fruit even if they grow back really well. Last year we had one survive winter. It was 8 foot tall, but it did not have a single fig on it. Other varieties like brown turkey, at about 3 foot tall, it started pushing figs. And so the variety is very dependent on how well they will fruit after dieback. The spring wake up, you do want to be careful. It is very sensitive to a frost. The green growth is it will be damaged easily even with a 30-degree day. So if they start to grow before the last frost date, then we got to cover them up in the springtime. And so pulling the mulch back can help, but it can also be a way to damage your fig in ground. It's a delicate balance of how early you can pull the mulch off. These totes should help as a mini greenhouse to protect them from some of the light frost. So we're going to try that. And if you only have a few trees, that may help. So we'll go over those. And I think that's about all we're going to cover today for cold hardy figs, but this will be the channel you will want to watch if you live in a cold zone and you've been told that figs can't grow here. We're going to cover every variety that we are growing. There's 200 plus varieties, and so we should have a good idea of which trees can survive winter and fruit afterwards, and in a couple years we'll know which ones will reliably do it year after year. All right, in this row here, we've got Ronde Bordeaux and Tarama, which are the two most popular cold season, short season figs. What we're going to do is strip away all of the mulch, and we're going to check the growth. Any of the growth that is still live, you'll be able to tell real easy. We'll peel the bark away and show you what to look for to see if your tree is alive or dead. I wouldn't recommend doing that until it's at least probably middle of May, because once you peel the bark away a little bit, if there is a live growth in there, it will die easier. It'll dry out, the bark protects it. So then we'll strip away 2 trees here and build a greenhouse around them, and I'll give you some close-ups of what they look like. So we'll start by stripping it all away. We did dig down, and about 6 to 8 inches we still have frost in this area, so the mulch is holding the frost in. Maybe by stripping away the mulch and heating it up, we can get the frost out of the soil a little earlier and give them a little head start. All right, so here is a Ronde Bordeaux, and we can tell that all this top growth is dead. When you peel the bark away, there's nothing left. It's all brown underneath, and you know for sure that that part did not make it. If we go down a little bit farther, below the tag here, we can see we still have some green growth. It's not looking the best, but that means there's still hope below ground. And by pulling away some of the mulch, we can hopefully get that to dry up a little bit. And where it turns from that dark brown to the lighter color, it's still alive and didn't suffer, but is still at risk of death due to fungus, molds, or rotting on the roots. And over here we have another one, another Ronde Bordeaux. As you can see, some of the suckers survived, and we still have a green bud. And if you can see that, there's actually a bud right here. I'll get it in focus for you guys. There is a green growth here, and this survived negative 20 degrees this winter with just a few inches of grass over it. So a little bit higher up, this bark is completely loose and it is dead all the way down. There's nothing left on the top growth, but we do have below ground growth, so this one will survive. And by stripping back all this mulch, giving it a greenhouse, we should get some growth early. All right, what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna peel back all of this mulch, and this should help dry out the soil a little bit better. And we're gonna put this toad in here, and these ones will be covered up. And these totes I got just for plants. This one may not be big enough for 2 trees, but we'll get another one for the 3rd tree. So this guy gets his own little greenhouse. We're going to push the mulch up around the outside of it, kind of give it some insulation around the base from the wind. And now this tree's got its own little greenhouse. And hopefully that'll give us a quick start to the season. And then we'll move down the row. We've got quite a few more of these to go. But I think we're only going to do 3 of these greenhouses this year. All right, I know this one here. I'm going to uncover it and show you what I found a few months ago and I was not happy about, but this is something you'll find. Let's see if I can get you guys in close. So I've never seen vole damage till this year, but we switched to corn stalks because they're available. And this is what you find. So everything above ground will be dead for sure. It looks like below ground we've got some good growth still. When you dig down a little bit, the roots are still alive. So something to be wary of. I'm going to be doing some research on how to keep them from going in there, whether it's mothballs or something else, maybe traps. We're going to do some research on that, let you know what we can find and figure out. All right, this is third season Chicago Hardy. So it's survived winter twice now. Last year we hit -25. And this one I'm going to put a greenhouse on because it has a really nice root system. Well, the top might die. This one is good down to about here. See if I can get you guys in and see. All right, so you can see the bark down here. Looks nice. And I wouldn't recommend scratching too much bark off because that will dry it out, and it's better if the plant dries out on its own naturally. But so this tree I planted as a small tree 3 years ago, and we hit -25 last winter, and I used a different style overwintering with a tub covering the entire thing, and I had 0 dieback, but it was cut down to about here. So the ways we can do that, I'll show you how I covered those up. All right, so this third year Chicago Hardy last year, I should say the winter of 2023 to 2024, we covered up a different way. Our cattle operation uses these mineral tubs, and what I did is I piled some leaves, corn stalks, and garden debris, and then I threw this over top of it, mulched it again, and I had it cut back to about the same level where we're maybe 1 to 2 feet above the dirt, and I had 0 dieback on any of the dozen trees, and we hit -25 Fahrenheit that year. So definitely the way you mulch will help. As you can see, this year we've got death down to maybe about 6 inches high, and so I'm going to pick a few next year, use this tub method, and then the rest of them we're going to mulch before the frost, and hopefully the growth will still be alive when we uncover in the spring. This here to me says that the cold hardiness of a fig is not necessarily a variety, more about the dormancy on each tree. As the tree goes dormant, it gets more cold hardy. The early frost will kill it. So the key in our 4B zone here is early mulching. Hopefully next year with this thicker growth, maybe they'll survive a little bit earlier in this frost season. It won't kill them, and we have a little more time to frost, because the frosts start coming about the same time we're harvesting our corn and beans, so it gets kind of tough finding time to do all this. But either way, we're growing figs in zone 4B, and I hope everyone here will follow along, and we're going to teach you how we can get a fig to survive in our zone. I'm going to teach you how to overwinter them and which varieties do best for me, and if you live in a zone similar to us, you'll be able to get fruit off your trees. Check out these mantis eggs. First time I've ever found some in our garden. Pretty neat looking things. Found a couple. Turns out there's a Carolina and a Chinese mantis in Iowa, and some people consider these, the Chinese mantis, invasive, but other people say they're not. So we'll find out. Found a handful of them in this area, so I think we'll just go ahead and let them hatch out. All right, we got one more here. This one is Marseille Black, or Marcellus Black, or however you want to pronounce it. This one was really good in pot, but it does look like it has survived from this point to here, about 2 inches above ground. This was one that grew really well. Not super tall, but it put on a nice root base. And hopefully this one will will grow, but as you can see, a lot of this material has started to rot. Um, so we're going to be wanting to kind of loosen these up a little bit, cover it up for the next frost, but also give it some air to dry out with all the rain and snow we've been having. One other factor I'd like to say is the size of the tree didn't necessarily make a lot of difference. So you can see this one's smaller than my finger, and it died to the exact same point. A tree that's super thick would. And so this tree here was one of the smallest and last trees I put in. And also, the sooner you put these in the ground, the quicker they would establish, and then they would also get better roots. So earlier in the summer, the better it is. All right, so we also have the southern exposures of our barn. These trees actually went dormant and survived the initial frost a little better, but they were also taken down to the soil line, but not near as far down. So these had almost no mulch on them, and they are still green at a couple inches. They had maybe 3 inches of mulch total. So we're trying out that southern exposure. The cement walls of this barn keep our figs a little bit warmer. And we've got some of those same rare varieties or cold hardy, testing them all out. All right, the last foolproof method is put them in pots. And you see we have 42, 44 degrees. And these in our barn have stayed stable between, even though it's 20 degrees at night, 70 during the day on some days, it's been staying around 35 to 45 in here every single day. So we have lots of fig trees to choose from in here. This is one of the best ways to keep your fig trees alive through the winter if you don't want to put them in ground. All right, the last method is getting an earlier crop. We've got a Campanile, Panache, and LSU Thibodeau, and a blackish UCD. And these ones I brought in so we can get them to wake up early. This Panache already has some little striped brevas popping out. This is pretty exciting. This is a long ripening, so I wanted that one to be in here early so we could get some figs on it during the peak ripening time, midsummer, and the heat. Campanile, Thibodeau, and Black Isha. I really just wanted to grow them because everyone raves about them. I didn't get any figs off them last year. So we are going to get these ones woken up early. These are all the air layers I've overwintered. I plan to share these with friends and family and eventually work on a nursery license so we can share them more than that. And we also got our greenhouse in here, and we have a bunch of tomatoes growing. These are honeycomb hybrids. We've got some purple tomatoes in here and all of our peppers. And right now we're just waiting for that spring warm up to come so we can get these out in the garden. Let's see if I can zoom in and you can see the brevas on this Panache. As you can see, there's just probably about a dozen of them on this tree. Striping is pretty neat fig. Well, thanks for watching our show, and I hope you follow along and subscribe and keep tabs on how to grow the cold hardiest figs possible. And we'll give you all the information we can get